Who doesn't love coloring gorgeous cats with beautiful fur? Well, today I'm taking fur to the next level and coloring this lynx with markers and colored pencils. And stick around to the end for a bonus tip to take your coloring to the next level. Alright, let's jump right in with step 1. Block in shadows with markers. So with this grayscale coloring page, the shadows are already marked out, which makes this a lot easier. I take my dark brown and block out the darkest shadow areas in the fur. I'll apply the color in gentle strokes, going with the natural flow of the fur. This helps map out the shadows and maintain the fur texture that we'll keep throughout this entire coloring. The markers I'm using today are Ohuhu markers with a fine tip end. They blend together and play nicely with the Prismacolor pencils I'm also using today. If you want to add them to your studio, I'll put the links to them in the video description. Step 2. Layer dark, medium, and light markers. Once the dark shadows are blocked in, I add the medium, then the light markers. So this is how it works. I start with a color palette of dark, medium, and light colors. I often say coloring grayscale is as easy as 1, 2, 3. One dark color, one medium color, and one light color. You put the dark color over the darkest shadow areas, the medium color over the medium dark areas, and the lightest color over the lightest or white parts of the image. Sometimes I go back and add an extra dark color for a bit more contrast. I did that this time with a nice rich dark brown. With these Ohuhu markers, I always use the brush end with the fine tip. I apply them in all dashes and lines to keep the fur texture. And I layer them over each other so the colors can blend together. The goal is to create a nice underlayer of color, kind of like an underpainting. I'll put the pencils over this, but the markers will help make a rich layer of color and enhance the hues of the pencils. Keep in mind, the markers need a few minutes to blend, so when you first put the colors on each other, there's no instant gratification. It can take a few minutes for the colors to bleed into each other. Oh, side note, I'll list the exact colors I'm using in the video description as well for you. Step 3. Block in shadows with pencils. Okay, now we repeat the process in pencil. So again, start by blocking in the darkest shadows with the dark pencil. And again, I apply the color in dashes and strokes that go with the flow of the cat's fur. But there's a big difference between the pencils and the markers. With the pencils, I am very careful to not press down hard with this dark pencil. I don't want to fill the tooth or texture of the paper. Speaking of paper, today I'm using Nina Vellum cardstock. It's heavier than normal printing paper, so it can take all these layers of colors and won't tear. If you want some, I'll put the link in the video description for you as well. Alright, step 4. Layer dark, medium, and light pencils. Just like with the markers, there are dark, medium, and light colors in the pencil palette. Once I had those colors selected, I added some other colors to expand the hues in the fur and make it a bit more fun. Whenever you expand your color palette or layer colors, you can always test them on scrap paper. It's totally okay to try out your colors before you put them in the final image. Just like before, all the colors are applied in dashes and follow the pencil lines of the fur. We want to keep that texture. The one reason why I chose this lynx for this video is because it's a nice mix of some longer flowing fur and the short fur on the legs and around the mouth. This way you can see how the principle is still the same, no matter what the fur length is. Short, quick dashes for short fur, and long, flowing lines for longer fur. But always you are applying your color with the growth of the fur. Also, I mentioned earlier that I don't press too hard with the darker pencil, so I don't, go too dark too fast or fill the paper tooth. But once we get to the lighter pencil in the palette, I can press a little harder. That lighter color is a blender here. I put it over the other colors and it will help blend all the other layers together. If you want a more striking contrast between dark and light, you can always go back and add some more dashes of the darker colors. This will also make some more crisp lines in the cat's fur. And step 5, add white for extra highlight. Finally, after all your colors are layered together, it's time to add white highlights. You don't have to do this part. It's more suitable if you want a very blended look in the fur. Also, the white will mute the colors a bit. I used the white here because it's a lynx and they often have a bit more dull coloring in their fur, so they blend in with their surroundings. If you don't want to dull colors, then just use the lightest color in your original color palette to blend the colors, or use a colorless blender. Just like the other pencils, apply the white in dashes and lines with the flow of the fur. And I'm careful to not put the white over the very darkest shadows. This is only for super blended highlights. After the white, I go back with the dark color to get some crisp dark lines and bring a bit more color back into the fur. And now for the bonus tip. Add paint marker for extra highlight and detail. Again, you don't have to do this part. You put a lot of work in layering all those colors. But for any cat fur that has those stray white strands of hair, that is a fantastic tool to use. I use the Flymax paint marker and just add wisps of fur strands. Be careful you only put the white lines in the lighter areas, or don't put a lot of them in the darker areas, or you will lose that beautiful sense of volume that you built up with those shadows. And there you have it! 5 quick tips to help you color cat fur with markers and pencils. If this video inspired you, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next video. In fact, if you really want to be inspired, then go check out my playlist, How to Color Like a Pro, with lots of more fantastic coloring tutorials in it. And as always, stay creative!